welcome to all of you. Good morning. On this rather rainy, thankfully not snowy Saturday just yet here in London. Yes, my name's Clare Wardell. I am a head of faculty at BPP Law School based at Red Lion Street in London. A little bit about my background. So I went to a grammar school in Dover in Kent. I read law at Warwick University back in the 90s, would you believe? And did what was then the bar vocational course in London. And I practiced thereafter, got a pupillage at a criminal set in London and practiced for just over 16 years as a criminal barrister, specialising variously in cases involving sexual offences and complex fraud. And in September 2018, I joined BPP as a tutor, teaching criminal litigation and advocacy. I became the programme leader in October 18 for the London full-time bar course cohort, and I became a head of faculty in the last few months. So I've been a programme leader on the bar course for a couple of years. So that's my background. So what I'm here to do today is not to talk about BPP, but to give you a bit of a guide on the bar course itself. Okay, because a number of things have changed in recent years, and it's to give you a bit of an overview generally of the course, the various components. What I would say is an overarching thing today is please make sure that you choose the course that best suits you. Okay, look at the websites of all the providers. The courses are taught and the components are slightly different between all of them, and it will really be for you to find the best fit for you. So that everything I say today is in that context. Okay? So the bar course pathways and choosing a bar course. So in this presentation, what I'm going to do is address all three elements. Okay? What the bar course is and what subjects it contains, to give you a bit of a steer and information on that, okay? The bar course pathways and what types of bar course are available, okay? And then what you will want to consider when choosing a bar course, okay? Which provider and alike, funding, the teaching, etc., okay? And I'll cover all of those, which I hope will give you a really good overview of what is involved. So we'll start with a little bit of history. You may have heard of the bar course being referred to as the Bar Professional Training Course, or the BPTC. In fact, in my time as programme leader at BPP, that's what the bar course was referred to as. It was the Bar Professional Training Course. But in fact, that course, the same as what is now known as the BTC, please come in, welcome, is, as you know, the bar course is the course for those people who want to practice at the bar, okay? Preparing you for pupillage. The BPTC was exactly that course. It prepared the students who studied on it for pupillage between 2010 and in fact 2020, till very recently, okay? In 2020, the Bar Standards Board replaced the BPTC. All right, so the BPTC, the Bar Professional Training Course, in fact no longer exists and is no longer being taught. Each university, in fact, that now offers some form of bar training has given it its own name. And the reason why I start in this vein is to give you a bit of a summary of what the course might be referred to as, because historically it was called the BPTC across the organisations that provided that training. So now you might see it variously referred to as the Barrister Training Course, okay, the Barristers Training Course, right, the Bar Course, the Bar Professional Course, the Bar Training Course, and Bar Vocational Studies. All right? So if you see reference to the course by those names, it is in effect, albeit perhaps taught differently and structured differently, the vocational academic preparation to become a barrister before pupillage, okay? So when you're conducting your own research, when you're talking to the various providers here, when you're looking on the internet at those organisations that provide that course, be very much alive to the fact that it's referred to differently, which frankly I'm sure a number of you know already. For ease of reference for all of you, I'm going to... Please come in. You're very welcome. No, don't worry. No, you're very welcome. Please come in. Please come in. For ease of reference in this... I haven't said very much, but so you haven't missed very much, don't worry. For ease of reference during this presentation, I'm going to refer to it as the bar course. Okay? So that will cover the courses that are named by the various different academic institutions. So, the bar course. Now, I'm sure a number of you will know the detail of the bar course. If you do, forgive me, but we wanted to start from a holistic overall approach. Okay? So, what is the bar course made up of? So, although each university has a different bar course, the Bar Standards Board, okay, has a prescribed curriculum and assessment strategy. All right, that sets the subjects that must be taught and assessed in the currency of the course. It makes sense, doesn't it? The Bar Standards Board is the regulator, okay, and so they, for example, have this prescribed curriculum and assessment strategy. The subjects that are covered and taught on the bar courses are basically divided up in what I'm going to call two general areas, and you'll see this on the slide, all right? The first of which are the Bar Standards Board centrally set assessments, okay? Civil litigation and evidence, criminal litigation, evidence and sentencing. So those assessments are set by the Bar Standards Board and are the same wherever you study on the bar course, okay? Those exams are exactly the same wherever you study, okay? They are set and marked by the BSB, and as I've said, they're taken by all bar students, whichever academic institution you're at. All right? But then we move on to the university assessments, and you can see the list there. Okay? Conference, submission advocacy, examination in chief, cross-examination, legal research and opinion writing, and drafting. Bit of a summary. Conference, I don't know how many of you know what that is. Do any of you know what that is as a subject? Don't worry if you don't. So, this course, don't forget, is preparing you for pupillage. When you're counsel, you will have a conference with your client. You'll meet with your instructing solicitor and your lay client. So, for example, at the criminal bar, I had, as you might imagine, many conferences with clients, whether that was in chambers, in the cells, at court, or in a conference room at court. The conference is where you take instructions and you provide advice. Okay? So the conference is a subject that's taught. Submission advocacy. So all of you presumably want to go to the bar for a number of different reasons, but a number of you will want to be advocates. Okay? Submission advocacy is exactly as it sounds. You are making submissions. So in the civil law context, it might be an application for an interim injunction, for example. In the criminal context, it might be a bail application or a plea in mitigation after a defendant has pleaded guilty or has been found guilty. Okay? So you're taught submission advocacy. Examination in chief, cross-examination, that speaks for itself, doesn't it? And then legal research and opinion writing and drafting. So they aren't set by the Bar Standards Board. Although they are set by the individual universities, however, they are benchmarked against that curriculum and assessment strategy I was referring to earlier, set by the Bar Standards Board. Okay? So, beyond following that prescribed assessment criteria and curriculum, each university that provides the course is free to deliver it in whichever way they feel is best to prepare the students for pupillage and life at the bar. Okay? And so what this has done, it has led, thankfully, to much more student choice in the bar courses that are available and offered than existed, in fact, under the BPTC. So the reason why I've given you that overview as to what existed and what's now changed is really illustrative of the point that I've just made, namely that it gives students much more choice. And so when I started right at the beginning, the umbrella position, have in mind what institution would suit you, what particular course would suit you, the way it's taught. That's why I started in that way, okay? So, the bar course pathways. So, this slide speaks for itself. There's a 3-step pathway or a 4-step pathway. All right, and what I'm going to do now is focus, which I hope is helpful, on 2 of the bar course pathways, because they're the ones that are most commonly offered by the universities that you'll be looking at, the institutions you'll be looking at. All right, so let's look at the 3-step pathway. I'm going to start again with a bit of an overview for you. You have the academic component, okay? You have the vocational component, okay? And then the work-based learning component. And at the end, how wonderful, you're authorised to practice as a member of the bar. The first step, okay, the academic component. I'm sure all of you know this already. This is a law degree or non-law degree plus the PGDL, okay? You'll all be aware of that, I'm sure, okay? And that contains 7 foundations of legal knowledge. So, criminal law, equity and trusts, law of the European Union, obligations 1, which is contract, obligations 2, which is tort, my least favourite subject personally, property and land law. Some of you may love it. Please don't be offended by the fact that it wasn't mine. And then public law. So that's constitutional law, administrative law, human rights. Okay? That's the academic component. So once a student has passed that academic component, you move to guess what? Yes, it's not rocket science, is it? On to the vocational component. Now, the vocational component is, guess what? Yes, you're thinking one step ahead of me and wondering why I'm here, because you could work this out for yourselves. The bar course. Here we are at the bar course, okay? And that contains the core knowledge and subject skills that I've gone through earlier. Namely, the BSB assessments of civil and crime, if I can put it neutrally, and those other university set assessments, okay? Most universities are offering that version of the pathway, all right? On successful completion of the vocational component, namely the bar course, you're called to the bar, you become a member of the Bar of England and Wales, and then the work-based component can start, pupillage, okay? Pupillage is a minimum of 12 months. You have the first non-practicing 6 months where you shadow either one or a number of members of the bar who is your pupil supervisor. If, for example, you've got pupillage not at the independent bar but in-house, for example, at the Crown Prosecution Service or various other organisations that offer pupillage, very similar. You'll have your 12 months, you'll have your first 6 months that are non-practicing, and then you are let out into the wide world to practice. And I remember well my first day on my feet at Uxbridge Magistrates Court. That'll be for another day anyway. And so off you go till you finally reach that exciting part of your career progression. You are actually representing clients, okay? So that's the 3-step pathway, which I hope makes sense. Let's move now to the 4th-step pathway, okay? So academic component, well, that speaks for itself. You've got the foundations of legal knowledge, which I've already covered. The vocational component. Now, this is where this slightly differs. You've got part 1, part 2. Okay? Then you can be called to the bar. You've got the work-based learning component, and then your authorisation to practice. Okay? So, on the 4th-step pathway, the first step, academic component, but the vocational component is split into 2 parts. It follows as night follows day, doesn't it? Part 1, part 2. Okay? And these are effectively the 2nd and 3rd steps in this 4-step pathway. So there are a number of different versions of part 1 and part 2 within this pathway. And this, again, is why it's going to be really important for you to do your research in terms of the providers of this course, okay? to find the one that is most suited to you. So, for example, some universities offer Part 1 as a wholly self-study and online version. Okay? And Part 1, for example, could include preparatory or criminal litigation preparation for BSB assessments, for example. So you don't have, at certain institutions who offer Part 1 in that way, you don't have classes around your learning, okay, in this sort of traditional academic sense. But it's offered as self-study and online. So obviously you'll have all the materials and the like provided online, okay? Other institutions will provide classes in support with a tutor, for example, during the course of Part 1, okay? Some bar courses just teach the knowledge subjects in Part 1, namely criminal litigation and civil litigation, okay? But others will integrate advocacy in Part 1. So, for example, you'll also be taught some advocacy, okay? And that will be a way, for example, of integrating some of your knowledge of the subject skills, namely crime and civil, with an advocacy element, okay? How else is it different between institutions? Well, for example, some universities require you to pass Part 1 before allowing you to go on to progress to Part 2, whereas others don't require this. All right, so the difference is, well, you'll have Part 1, Part 2. Some of Part 1 is online, some is face-to-face. Some teach advocacy along with criminal and civil litigation, others don't. Some require you to pass Part 1 before Part 2, others don't. So I'm sorry I sound a bit like a broken record, but this is why your own independent research into where you want to study is really important, because it's not one size fits all, as it were. Okay? Very important for you to consider whether a particular pathway is going to be right for you and the way you study and the way you would like to approach the course. Okay? So, once that vocational component is complete, namely the bar course, you can be called to the bar. The fourth step is moving again to the work-based learning component in exactly the same way as the three-step pathway. Okay? You have your pupillage, and then you are authorised to practice. So I hope that makes sense in terms of the differences that there can be and why it's important for you to do your own research. I'm now going to move on to choosing a bar course, because this is what you'll all want to be doing, which course is right for me. So I'm going to give you some examples of a number of factors that you might want to have in mind when you're deciding which course to choose. So let's start with the first. The first factor may well be financial. Okay? What you will need to consider are the course fees. All right? There are a wide range of fees for bar courses. Okay? They're not all the same. But the headline price is one factor you might want to consider. Please make sure you look at what's included in the price. Okay? Does it contain an optional choice, or do you have to pay extra? How many students are in an advocacy class, for example? Okay? The bar course itself, in terms of its academic description, tends to be offered either as a postgraduate diploma or a master's. And I'm going to come on to the differences in just a moment, okay? These tend to have different course fees. So in simple terms, you can do the bar course and you can do a master's, okay? They will have different course fees, but again, that depends on the type of qualification that you receive at the end, all right, when you complete the course. Payment structures between the universities that offer it can also be different. So please make sure you look at that and what suits you. There might, for example, be a one-off payment that needs to be made. Another institution or other institutions might allow for instalments to be paid in relation to your fees. So go onto the university's website and look for the full details of what's offered, okay? because you'll then get a steer as to how you're going to be required to pay for the course. So that, in summary, is course fees. Okay, I'm going to move now on to considering master's funding. Okay, so master's funding is a good way to fund the bar course, all right, if you want to do the master's component. The government funding for a master's is currently £11,570. Okay, now you need to be aware that not all of the institutions, universities that offer the bar course offer it as part of a master's programme. Okay, so again, that's something for you to consider. So if you wish to utilise the postgraduate master's loan, you need to choose a course that has the master's programme. So if you're particularly in the master's programme, interested in that, there is a funding component. What I should say is this, though: if you have before the bar course, the master's component, otherwise studied a level 7 course, so that's another master's project, for example, or the LPC, and you've received funding from that, government funding for that, you are not eligible to then apply for funding for the master's component of the BTC. Really important for you to remember. So if any of you have currently got master's funding for a level 7 course, you wouldn't be able to obtain funding again. Okay? So, thirdly, let's move on to scholarships. Okay? The Inns of Court, as you know, will have millions of pounds for scholarships available to fund the bar course. I'd really encourage you, if you haven't already, to go on to the Inns of Court, so whichever of the 4 Inns of Court you wish to be a member of or you are already, and look at their scholarships programmes. Okay? That can be used for whichever bar course you choose to attend. Really important that for you all to remember. The deadline date is the first Friday in November in the year preceding, okay, the year you commence the bar course. So you need to be really alive to the deadlines, okay, for applying for scholarships. So what I would really encourage all of you to do is to, if you've not become a member of an inn already and you're at the particular stage where you're able to, look at the details of their scholarship programme and the application deadlines, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you've missed that deadline. Okay? And the details of the application process will be available on each inn's website, so you'll be able to find that. Okay? Some universities also offer scholarships. So there's the inn route for scholarships, and some universities also offer that option to pay for part of the bar course fees. Okay? So again, look at the provider's website, there'll be, I'm sure, a page on scholarships if they offer scholarships, and look for the information as far as that's concerned, because that will be a really important feature for, if not all of you, many of you. Okay? And obviously a really valuable way of being able to fund the course. So that's the financial element, and the 3 factors that you'll want to consider when you're considering your bar course. So let me move on now, if I may, to employability. Okay? So the second factor you're going to be wanting to think about in relation to your choice of bar course is employability. And I'm going to go through each of these. Careers advice might be one thing for you to consider. Pro bono opportunities, another. Pupillage statistics, another. So let's start with careers advice. Okay? Ultimately, you'll be doing the bar course because you want to practice at the bar. Not everybody will, but I'm going to work on the basis that that's why all of you will want to take that course up. And so you'll want to look at each institution and the assistance that's offered you to help to achieve that goal. Okay? So, for example, look through the institution at the careers service and their faculty. What do they offer? For example, will they help you review your CV? Can you have your application forms for pupillage review? Do they provide that assistance? Are mock interviews offered to help you prepare for pupillage interviews? Okay, this is a non-exhaustive list, by the way, but just to give you some examples of what you might want to be looking out for. Is there a guest speaker programme offered by the institution? So look at the careers advice, look at what they can do to support employability. Secondly, pro bono work. I'm sure you all know what that is, but pro bono work is assisting for free, basically working as to provide advice for free. All right. So, for example, you might want to look, well, what projects do they offer? Is there a pro bono service within the institution? What projects do they offer? What's the reputation of the pro bono centre? Has it won awards for its offering? Okay, they obviously don't have to, but these are the sorts of questions that you might want to look at. Is there supervision available through the pro bono centre? Okay. Now, pro bono work is really, in my view, a really good practical experience that you can get under your belts whilst you're preparing for pupillage. Okay. There are lots of others, but that's one good one. Mini pupillages are marshalling. I mean, we could be here all day listing all the things that you could get involved in. So that's not the only thing you'll want to consider as part of your preparation and your work experience. But for the purposes of the institution you're looking at, that might be another valuable starting point. Okay? And then thirdly, pupillage statistics. Okay? All institutions will have their own statistics. Okay, the benchmark is the Bar Standards Board Key Statistics Report. All right, that's an extensive document and is basically the gold standard prepared by the Bar Standards Board. Okay, so hopefully you'll take that away. If I'm thinking about employability in the context of my bar course, careers advice, pro bono, pupillage statistics are three, in my view, good pointers for you. And so I'm going to move on now, finally, but obviously importantly, to course design. So 6 areas here, again non-exhaustive, but some of the things you might want to be thinking about. Okay? Contextualised learning, course design. As I've said, each bar course has its own design. Okay? There can be real differences between them, so please do your research carefully. Let's think about the context in which you're learning, okay? So, the knowledge subjects, civil and crime, they're the ones, remember, that are set and marked by the Bar Standards Board. Are they separated out from the skills? Would you prefer for them to be taught in a way that isn't integrated with the skills? Or actually, when I say skills, I mean an advocacy component. Would you rather that be your focus? Or, for example, would you rather there be an element of advocacy taught at the same time? You might have different preferences. It will depend on the way you want to learn. So if, for example, advocacy is integrated together, you won't just learn about the civil and criminal procedure, you'll have advocacy with it, but that might not be what you want to do. Okay? Contextualised learning enables you to make the links between pure knowledge and its application in the real world. But you might say to yourselves, well, actually, I'd rather focus on those BSB exams and prepare myself in that way. Okay? Let's move to educational technology. So go and look at the provider and say to yourself, right, what educational technology is on offer to assist me when I'm preparing for my assessments? Okay? For example, is there a learning platform which would test your knowledge? Okay? Look and see how the course is taught by that provider. You might prefer one to another, but it's another good way of helping you make the right choice for you. Okay? Thirdly, flexibility and location. So, for example, does the university offer the bar course in a mode that you want? Some people, absolutely understandably, will have, for example, working commitments, caring commitments, family commitments. A full-time programme might not be something which they can then balance with understandable life commitments. that may be competing during the course of the week, is there a part-time component which can be done other than being full-time? Okay? Does the institution offer the course in a location that works for you? Which part of the country do you want to study in? Actually, does part one being online suit you more? Would you rather have that tutor teaching as well as the online component for part one? Part one, namely the civil and criminal litigation aspects. So look at the mode that it's being taught in, part-time, full-time, and where. Okay? Let's move on now to the fourth area I'm going to cover, and that's the elective choice that's available. Okay? I don't mean voting in an election, but the academic component. So what's built into this bar course? Okay? Does it just have a one-size-fits-all, or is there an element of choice in the subjects that I can be taught during its currency? So, for example, is there a choice for a choice of learning component within the full price? Or do I have to pay extra for that? If you want to study an LLM and you're looking at LLM funding, is that an option? Do you want to do the bar course as part of the LLM, or actually do you just want to do the bar course on its own? Okay, so that is another really important area. How is it taught? What's the context of the teaching? Am I interested in the master's component? Size and regularity of advocacy training. The irony of me using the wrong word there, bearing in mind I've been a barrister for many years. Anyway, so presumably you're interested in going to the bar because you want to be an advocate. Okay. Some of you might want your career to be full of advocacy, namely you're in court all the time, like I was at the criminal bar. Some of you actually want that advocacy component to be a little less, but ultimately you want to be an advocate. Look at the advocacy that's taught during the course of the programme that you're interested in. Is that a factor of importance to you? Are the size of the advocacy classes important to you, namely how many students study in each class? Okay? So again, an important factor for you, because the advocacy is an important component, is it not, of you studying towards this career. And then finally, preparation for centralised assessments. The centralised assessments you'll know now, criminal litigation and civil litigation. Okay? They are difficult exams. Okay? It's a level 7 qualification. So it's really important that you choose a bar course and the way it's taught that is best for you. Okay? And suits your learning style. So some people really like an online study form. Actually, that suits some people much better. So look to see whether the provider teaches it in that way. Or would you prefer there to be a tutor component? Some people wouldn't. Some people actually really prefer the online format. Others might say, actually, I do want there to be a tutor component with classes in a face-to-face environment along with self-online study. Okay? Look at the contact time, namely how many hours of tutor classes, if that's what your preferred option is, how many hours are there each week? Okay? Again, this will all feed in when you pull all these components together. What suits me best? How will I feel best supported in my learning? Or how will I achieve what I want to achieve? And so in summary, with more choice than ever for the bar course, which is where I started, isn't it? It's really important you take your time to consider the course that's right for you. Okay? Conduct your research, go and look at all of the providers for the purposes of your scholarships, look at the Inns of Court, and again look at the providers. There is lots of information out there. Don't be daunted by that, okay? Use that as something which is a great thing to help you make the choice that's going to be a really important one for all of you. Okay? So that is the end of my presentation to you. I hope that's been useful in giving you a summary.